Teachers of Reddit, what is the smartest / most creative way of cheating that you've seen? College physics, girl with a really intricate tattoo on her leg, wrote formulas in between the tattoo lines. Even looking closely you couldn't tell, unless you knew what you were looking for. You could tell it was test day, because she wore shorts. Reminds me of Prison Break. I'm a high school teacher, but this story is about my own high school math teacher playing us and cheating. It was an honors algebra / geometry class, and it was well known that Mr. D reused the same questions every year, just changed the numbers. He made a big deal about making sure we all gave our exam papers back to him, after we had looked at our scores, and gone over everything together, to prevent cheating for the next year. Well, of course, some of my classmates got their hands on a complete set of tests from the previous year. Soon, everyone had a set. Before each exam, we would sit together and make sure we knew how to solve every problem on that test, so we could do it on the real exam with different numbers. Years later, when I became a teacher myself, I saw Mr. D at a funeral. I confessed to him that this is what we used to do. He smirked and said, "Who do you think leaked the test packet to get you to study?" Mr. D had figured out that kids won't study if the teacher suggests it, but if they think they're getting away with something, they totally will, so he managed to get a test packet out and circulating as contraband. Blew my mind. There was a class that allowed you to bring one sheet of handwritten notes to exams. I knew a guy that created a font of his own handwriting and used to print the entire study guide onto a piece of notebook paper, front and back. He even set the font color to pencil gray and managed to get the margins and spacing exactly right to look like it had been handwritten. Modern problems require modern solutions. My girlfriend works for a dental exam company, which are obviously super high stakes exams. Since the exams are worldwide, they have actually found people from one time zone paying people from another time zone to email questions to them right before the exam starts. There's actually a movie with this same plot called Bad Genius, where a student takes a test in a different country that is a few hours ahead and texts the answers back to others that have the test in a few hours. Not the student but the teacher. So, the teacher, let's call him Mr. A, had a reputation for being a phenomenal teacher who had every student engaged / invested in his class, no matter how mundane the subject. Anytime he asked a question, every student's hand would shoot in the air with them shouting things like "Call on me," or "I know the answer." Simply, Mr. A developed a reputation in the district as one of its best teachers. Fast forward a couple years, and I'm grabbing coffee with Mr. A, and I ask him, "What's your trick? How did you get every student bought in?" His response, "Well, I told the kids every time we had a visitor in class, I need you all to raise your hand, like I was giving away free candy. But if you don't know the answer, raise your left hand. If you do know it, raise your right hand, so I know who to call on, and we all look good." Worked like a charm. My exams that used a graphic calculator, T84, required us to show the examiners a proof of reset screen before the papers started, so instead of actually studying for my papers, I painstakingly redrew the proof of reset screen pixel by pixel in the T84's pixel art program and stored all my notes in it. Our calculator had a storage feature too. Once you open the battery cover, it turns off, and on next start it shows the reset screen. We had to open the cover and let the teacher press OK to reset. No way of cheating here. During a spelling test, "Miss, how do you spell piano?" The spelling word was piano. Teacher went on autopilot and started spelling the word. One time in the 3rd grade, there was a girl that didn't hear the word the teacher said on a spelling test, so she leaned over to me and asked what she said. Me being the good student I was, there was no way I was going to talk during a test. So you know what I did? I ducking wrote it down and passed it to her, not thinking I had just spelled the word out and that would be considered cheating. Promptly I was caught doing this by the teacher and realized what an idiot I was. I was grading a written assignment that had a 1,000 word count minimum, and one particular paper just felt really short to me despite Word telling me it was roughly 1,100 words long. On a hunch I hit CTRL-A, and sure enough, after the paper concluded, there was a lot of white nonsense text on a white background. That's gotta be the dumbest form of lengthening a paper there is. If you email a document, one click foils the plan, and if you turn in a hard copy, The white text doesn't even count. My sister-in-law is a teaching assistant at her kid's school. Her youngest daughter, my niece, was 7 at the time. She stole the test the night before, pretended it was homework, and had her mom help her with her homework, then sneaked the answers into the test. One of the other kids caught her, let the teacher know, and Mysil, who was overseeing test conditions, died inside when she realized it was the homework sheet that she'd filled out. I was a tar for anatomy and physiology. The professor would ask for me to sit in on finals to prevent cheating. One kid came in with a vitamin water. No worries. Halfway through the test, the professor noticed they kept turning the bottle and squinting. This goes on for another 20 minutes. Professor goes up, grabs the vitamin water bottle and rips off the label. It had a crud sheet written on the back. The students had gone to the effort to make a fake vitamin water bottle label and write notes in the back. The professor was impressed by the creativity and decided to give the student a 0 and not report them to the academic committee. Stretch a rubber band around a textbook, write whatever you want on it, then when you take it off the textbook, it'll just look like scribble until you stretch it to see what's written. Spanish conjugations drove me to do some incredibly unethical things. How would you use those without looking suspicious? You could say it's a fidget thing, but it's risky. Claim that it's a religious thing. High school kids recreated a Snapple label where the nutrition panel on the back had all the answers, formulas, etc. Only got caught because I'd never seen the flavor before and wanted to see how much sugar was in it. I can imagine how worried they were when you inspected the bottle, like, oh, how much sugar is in TH? You're all failing. As a student, I remember when my entire year level was accused of cheating, as the test results came back consistently high. What the teachers failed to realize was that some of the answers were actually hidden in other questions. So if you got stuck on one question, you could find the answer later on in another question. An example would be, this was a Japanese language test, what does word mean? And later on, a question would use that word in context, so you would understand what that word meant. Yes, I know exactly what you mean. Haha, that's definition a good test taking strategy. Used a text file on one of the original iPods. Teacher was fine with listening to music during tests. Made my life so much easier, lol. You should have made your own math rap album and call it Quick Maths. My teacher shared with us a story about how, since she allowed eating during her tests, one person pulled out a giant bag of M&Ms and ate a specific color corresponding to a /B/C/D. It was a 2-student duo and they only got caught when another student ratted them out. What a snitch. In high school I was in a computer-based learning program and our science tests were taken digitally. However, they used a program where once you entered the test your entire screen was locked into the test and the only way to exit it was to click the finish button on the test or turn off your computer, which effectively did the same thing. Another feature of the program was that once you were in the test, anything you had in your clipboard, copied text, was not able to be pasted into the answer sections on the test, to prevent the only other way to cheat. However, after creating my own classroom at home, making fake tests, and playing with the program to figure out a way to cheat, I realized that it would allow you to copy things from inside the test and paste them elsewhere in this test. The developers of the program also did not take into account the sign-in screen, where you have to find the test and enter it. Long story short, I could copy my entire page of notes I had taken on the test material, paste it into the section where I would enter my login information, then recopy it, enter the test and paste it again in one of the answer sections, using it to answer every question, and then deleting it before clicking finish. One of my old teachers told us a story about a student who had rigged up a tiny scroll of paper in a wristwatch with notes written on it. He turned the scroll by winding the watch. He ended up getting caught because he was winding his watch so damn much during the exam, but the teacher loved the creativity. A classmate broke the screen and keyboard of his calculator and hid his cell phone in it so it couldn't be seen from the teacher's position. The teacher approached him from behind and caught him though. BRB bringing a calculator to a biology test. I passed a pop quiz in high school by looking across the room and focusing on the top of the smart girl's pencil and trying to decipher if she wrote A, B, C or D after the teacher asked each question. It actually turned out more successful than I thought it would. Edit. Spelling. Hey, I mentioned how I cheated on a quiz. What did you expect? Also, I'm all about academic integrity when it comes to important higher education when relative to your field of work, but I don't understand loading immense amounts of needless information into young hormonal teenagers and getting upset or surprised that they don't have the mental stamina to deal with it all and would rather cheat. Writing down math formulas and putting them in the instructions insert of the calculator. More recently, kids will put the answers on their smartwatches. It's to the point where I make all students remove their watches and place them on the classroom counter before the test starts. Got any similar stories? Leave it in the comments below.